Kanazawa, a flourishing castle town. Nagamachi samurai houses. Ruins of Kanazawa Castle. Kenrokuen Garden. Over 420 years of history. It all started with the construction of 2 temples by the first Lord of Kaga, Maeda Toshiie. 1583, Hoenji Temple built. 1601, Edo-machi District completed. 1676, Denshite Garden built. 1759, the Great Fire of the Horeki period. 1774, Denshite Garden rebuilt. 1822, Takezawa Palace completed. 1851, the garden took its present shape. The garden underwent a series of drastic changes before its present level of beauty was achieved. Passage from a book about gardens by a Chinese poet of the Sung dynasty. Spaciousness, seclusion, artificiality, antiquity, abundant water, broad views, an unusual garden that combines 6 contradictory attributes. The garden was named Kenrokuen by Matsudaira Rakuo, the Lord of Shirakawa, after a passage from a book by a Chinese Sung dynasty poet. Regretting the passing of time and the scattering of the blossoms, as I quake in fear of spring storms. Kenrokuen pulses with vivid life during the spring. In the gorgeous cherry blossom season, huge crowds of people visit the garden. Mitsu Nagasawa wrote a collection of 100 poems about Kenrokuen, many of which took cherry blossoms as their subject. 2 of them are about the Asahi cherry trees, or Asahi Zakura. I find Asahi Zakura continuing to bloom with brilliant colors whenever I visit my hometown in spring. The glorious spring light spreads out in all 4 directions from the blossoming branches of the Asahi Zakura. Mitsu Nagasawa played in Kenrokuen every day during her childhood and wrote her 100 poems about the garden in 1975 at the age of 70. Mitsu Nagasawa discovered the transience of human life in the falling cherry blossoms, and sensed the limitless power of life in the cherry blossoms that bloom in brilliant profusion once again with every cycle of the 4 seasons. Among the nearly 400 cherry trees in the garden, about half are of the Somei Yoshino cherry variety. There are 2 varieties that bear the name of Kenrokuen. One is the Kenrokuen Kumagai Zakura, with its large, deep red petals. The other is the Kenrokuen chrysanthemum cherry, or Kikuzakura, that possesses 3 unique features. One being that it has more than 300 petals. The second being that it changes colors 3 times before it falls. And the third being that the blossoms fall to the ground completely intact. The Kikuzakura trees continue to bloom until the first part of May, and when the last blossoms are stripped off their branches by rain, the garden enters the season of fresh greenery. Kenrokuen throbs with life during the summer. It is a brilliant season when water flows throughout the entire park. The water brought in from the Tatsumi Reservoir makes its rounds of the garden, sometimes calmly, sometimes violently. The scenery created by the bridges over the wandering streams and the artificial mountains can be said to stand as a symbolic expression of a prayer for eternal prosperity. This is the theme of the garden that takes as its basis the Chinese Taoist ideology that seeks after immortality. The water that is first poured into Kasumi Gaike, next flows swiftly over Midori Waterfall, or is sent spouting high in the air by the fountains, to finally flow into Hisago-ike. The scattering spray of the water of Midori Waterfall evokes the coolness of the shallows of the sea. In the past, the area around Hisago-ike was called the Lotus Pond Garden, or Renshitei. It is said that this was the first section of Kenrokuen to be built, and the inspiration for the entire garden. The Midori Waterfall was constructed during the reign of Harunaga, the 11th chief of the Kaga clan. The Midori waterfall flows through the colored autumn leaves in a series of drops of slightly varying height, giving a sense of the changing of the seasons. In the center of the Hisago-ike is an island that is shaped like the Isle of Immortality in China. The Moonflower Tea House, or Yugaote, stands next to Hisago-ike. It was named after the wood carving of moonflowers that adorns its walls. Tradition has it that this tea house is a reproduction of the Ennan tea house, which belongs to the headmaster of the Yabunouchi Tea Ceremony School of Kyoto. The Ennan tea house was inherited from Oribe by the first headmaster of the Yabunouchi school, Jochi Kenchu. It is built in the thatched roof, Irimoya style of architecture. Different from the austere tea houses preferred by Rikyu, the Oribe style has an originality of form that made it broadly popular among the warrior class society. One of the anecdotes connected with the Ennan tea house is that Lord Toshiie Maeda once dozed off, leaning against the post of the decorative alcove. The Midori waterfall is seen from the Yugaote, giving a glimpse of the unique Japanese sense of perspective. It is for this reason that the Yugaote also goes by the name of Honorable Water Viewing Pavilion, or Takimi no Ochin. This is the only tea house of the 4 originally situated in the Renchite that remains standing on its original site. The Midori waterfall was the favorite aspect of Kenrokuen, of the great Kanazawa novelist Saisei Murou. It was in the 13th year of the Taisho period, 1924, that Murou invited his friend Ryunosuke Akutagawa to visit him at this villa that faces on the Midori waterfall. At the present moment, I am in the tea house called Miyoshi in the Kenrokuen garden, enjoying the hospitality of Saisei-sensei. The tea house is extremely luxurious, and it faces on Hisago-ike, with the Midori waterfall just outside its door. I hope you can imagine the elegant refinement of its ambience. The Yellow Gate Bridge, or Komonbashi, is one of the most famous spots in Renchite. This is the only place in Kenrokuen that gives a sense of being deep in the mountains when it is bathed in the brilliant light of the summer sun. The summer passes in Kenrokuen with the sound of flowing water. When the leaves begin to take on brilliant colors on Yamazaki Hill, a famous spot for viewing autumn leaves, the autumn reaches its climax in Kenrokuen. Here is displayed a last spurt of brilliance before the coming of the severely cold winter. Standing still on Yamazaki Hill as autumn passes, I am covered with the falling yellow leaves. Preparations for winter are begun in Kenrokuen in November. The first job is the stringing up of the web of ropes called yukitsuri on the Karasaki pine that is the only tree in the garden with such a lovely configuration of branches. These ropes are to protect the branches from breakage from the heavy, moist snow that is typical of the Hokuriku area. The Karasaki pine is supported by a web of around 800 ropes to protect it from the weight of the snow. The resulting geometric design reminds me of a stringed musical instrument, making me wonder what tones will be played on it by the strong and frigid north winter winds. The branches are linked together as though they are shouting to the snow to come whenever it pleases. The last autumn leaves clinging to the branches are swept away by the storms known as buriokoshi that are accompanied by freezing sleet and hail. Kenrokuen awaits the arrival of winter in the midst of the commotion of autumn. Winter sparkles at Kenrokuen. Yukio Mishima spoke of Kasumi Gaike when he saw it in December without a cover of snow in the following words: "It floats in the midst of the clear atmosphere, seeming for all the world like a brilliant symbol of heavenly peace. And it is an even more striking scene after a snowfall on an early morning before anybody has made footprints in the snow, when it is wrapped in a grand and mystical atmosphere." The natural environment of Ishikawa Prefecture provides a clear sense of the four seasons. When winter comes, it creates this pure white world. When the snow clings to the branches of the Karasaki pine, the grand rope web for protecting the tree from the weight of the snow produces one of the most beautiful sights in Japan. When I gaze upon this scenery, I am deeply moved by its mystical beauty, sometimes even to the extent of shedding tears. I feel that it is only in Kenrokuen that such loveliness can be found. This is one of the views of which Kenrokuen feels the greatest pride. It sometimes makes one feel that one is looking at an India ink painting. The Isle of Eternal Youth, or Horai Island, floats in the center of Kasumigaike. Nariyasu, the 13th chief of the Kaga clan, designed Kasumigaike in imitation of the ocean, and placed Horai Island in its center as an evocation of the Taoist ideology of eternal youth. The Kenrokuen garden was created over a long period of time by the various generations of the Kaga clan chiefs, undergoing constant change with the passing of the years. But the single unchanging element of its concept is the pursuit of immortality. Throughout its history, the chiefs of the Kaga clan have reflected the prosperity of the clan in their alterations of and additions to the Kenrokuen garden. On a snowy morning, the gardeners knocked the snow off the branches of the trees before opening the garden to the public for the day. Since the Edo period, our ancestors have continued to carry out this work in order to protect the aged trees, making it possible for us to observe the wonders of Kenrokuen today. And I am convinced that it is our duty to put forth our best efforts toward preserving its beautiful scenery for the generations to follow. Clouds come and go in the skies over the Kenrokuen garden without pause throughout spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Along with the melting of the snow, the plum blossoms begin to bloom. Kenrokuen contains 200 plum trees of around 20 varieties, including the double cold scarlet, the red plum, and the white plum. The seasons change and the winds cause the petals of the blossoms to scatter and fall, as the Kenrokuen garden awaits once more the return of glorious spring.